Hey everybody, it's your boy, _Jquellen_, or as the kids call it, Jquellen. And today I'm here to talk to you about one of my favorite things to talk about in music, guitars.
Money.
Mostly what drove me to want to talk about this today is I've had literally ones of you asking me, hey Jquellen, what is that guitar? And that guitar in question is my Cort EVL Z4, or my Cort EVL Z4. This guitar is honestly probably one of the cooler guitars that I've ever played. It's a Les Paul style Gothic body, but I feel like it's quite a bit smaller than your average Les Paul style body. It's quite a bit thinner. It's a matte black. Honestly, all these things are things that you can tell by looking at it. But this guitar has been heavily modified into making it into a metal machine. By that, I mostly am referring to the pickups. Pickups are one of the, in my opinion, one of the more controversial things to talk about as of late, primarily because of our good pal and audio engineer, Glenn Fricker. He has been going on, and honestly, it's been an enlightening comparison from guitar to guitar to guitar, differences between how all of these guitars sound using the same chord, the same amp, the same speaker, the same everything, and showing how there's been slight changes from one to one, from guitar to guitar, pickup to pickup, but hardly anything revolutionary. And honestly, I would say 95% of the way I 100% agree with them. 95% of the way I 100% agree with. But I think that there's one main thing that I find separates the active pickup from the passive pickup. So let's talk about that. One of my favorite guitars that I like to play, as you guys have seen, is my new Schecter C7. These pickups in it are super duper hot. They're super duper, honestly, they're one of the most versatile guitars and sets of pickups that I've ever had. You can go from single coil Strat style sounds to these genty chuggies, which I'm a fan. I think one of my favorite people that I like to base that versatility off of is Rob Scallon with his original signature with Chapman. His signature pickups, they had a little anchor on them because of the song that he made on an 8-string for the first time. But his signature pickups were called passive-aggressive humbuckers because he wanted a pickup that was able to play these really, really full-body, dynamic. Again, I'm going to go with chimey Strat-sounding cleans, but also at the flip of a switch, plug it into a Mesa or plug it into an Orange, and it go to break up heaven. And I find that this guitar, the C7, reminds me of that. But this has passive pickups. So then what's the difference? If we can use active pickups, like in my Corts, or if we can use passive pickups, like in my Schecter, and still get these same tones, that kind of leads to the same conclusion that our friend Glenn made. When it comes to broken up rhythm tones, what matters most is the amp and the speaker combination, as well as miking it. Because it's almost like as if the pickups are just an ends to a mean. It gets the tone into that, but it doesn't really affect the shape of the tone. Cut away to active versus passive comparison. So let's quickly talk about what's the difference between active and passive pickups. passive pickups, we are using the science of magnets. Really simple magnets, and I believe copper wiring to spin around these magnets. And what we're basically creating is a magnetic field where inside the magnets, there's a gap between the magnets and the copper wiring in and of itself. The copper wiring can't touch these magnets. They're separated by a barrier, creating this pocket of a magnetic force field, a very, very small one, albeit, but a pocket of magnetic force field that can pick up interference from other metal magnetic-esque substances, like your guitar strings. These pickups, the fluctuations of the strings vibrating above this force field of magnets is actually your guitar tone. Like, yes, there will be all of these different, we can get into the whole tone wood thing, and I think I'll talk about that in another episode. But primarily, as far as electric guitars, I would say 99% of the tone comes from these magnets, these magnets, and the interaction of the strings within this magnetic force field. How hard you play them, what kind of material you're using to interact with them. It all comes down to basically these strings moving in different ways. Fantastic. So these passive pickups, if you think about it, the magnetic force created between some copper wiring and some magnets is not going to be all that great. We can 100% beef it up by using stronger magnets, by using less coils, more coils, thinner gauges of coil. All of this is lending itself to, again, how this magnetic force field is tapered to pick up the sound of these strings. The more magnets, the more output. The more magnets that there is, the more magnetism that there is, the greater the force field, the hotter the output. We can adjust things like gauges and number of wraps to adjust EQing of how these the magnetic field kind of tapers, what frequencies are stronger and weaker, and we can use that to EQ, and that's what a lot of these passive pickup companies do. This is, again, very layman speak. I would love to go and learn more, but that is my understanding. And basically, by a greater magnetic force and a smaller magnetic force, we can then choose how hot these pickups are, how much signal is getting out of these pickups, and we kind of use that to determine what genre these pickups are tuned to. If they're going to be super duper hot, super duper high output, that's going to lend itself primarily more to genres that we want more distortion. So again, my Schecter C7 Pro, these pickups are pretty hot, which makes sense. A lot of the time when I'm using a 7-string, I'm going to want that thing to be able to punch me in the face with sonic frequencies. Anyway, okay, Josh, we learned about, my name's Josh. All right, Jake Quellen. Anyways, we've learned a lot about passive pickups. What's an active pickup? What's an active pickup? I'm glad you asked. Camera in the corner of my room. An active pickup uses, if you could deduce this on your own, an active circuitry board to influence how the frequencies of these strings are picked up in its own magnetic field. Rather than using your individual magnets and wiring, we are actually using a powered circuitry to amplify these signals to an even hotter, well, traditionally even hotter signal than most hot passive pickups. And one of the cool things about that is a lot of the old ones, like if you think about your traditional EMGs, if you think about your traditional like Seymour Duncan Blackouts, if you think about your traditional black soap bar that's just been jammed into the humbucker slot, 90% of these tones that you're going to get from it is meant to be as, I kind of like to use the word sterile as possible. And kind of how this whole thing works is like, let's talk about dynamics. And this is really where the functionality of the pickup, the active pickup, has really good pros and really bad cons. An active pickup, it uses a circuitry board in the same way that we could use a multi-band compressor to divide, I don't know the crossover points or number of crossover points, but I'll use 3 for the general synopsis. Multi-band compression, you have a frequency chart. You have your lows, your mids, and your highs. What a multi-band compression does is it says, okay, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to divide it into these chunks, these 3 chunks, lows, mids, and highs. I'm going to compress, which means I want to have the dynamic range. I want the really quiet sounds and the really loud sounds to be the same volume. I'm going to compress it so it's in that same volume. I want this pinch harmonic. I want this natural harmonic. I want this scrapey noise to be as loud as someone playing the biggest, fattest G chord that they possibly could. That is the tool of compression and what it is used for. So again, you take an active pickup, it will have multi-band compression, lows, mids, and highs, compress them individually, and then reintroduce them into one signal and send it in front of your amp. The main reason that we metalheads primarily like this is, in my opinion, pinch harmonics. Pinch harmonics are awesome. The equivalent of a natural harmonic, but rather than cutting the string in half like on the 12th fret or further down the fretboard and going into, bigger and bigger fractions, we are cutting the pinch harmonic into like these little sections like this big. And of course, that section is going to have a much higher tone. Instead of a da-da, it's going to be a da, but it's really quiet. So what this active pickup does primarily is it's going to take all this super loud chugging riffing and essentially turn that volume down so that when you also hit a pinch harmonic or a natural harmonic, that quieter signal, it's going to be the same volume. So that really lends itself really well, again, to the Cort that I have, that I've been using for a lot of my videos. It's a really long-winded way to get to the point of, in my opinion, 80% of the reason why that guitar is fucking awesome, for metal primarily, and the tones I'm getting, is those pickups. But where I find passive pickups and quieter pickups fall flat in this comparison is in the terms of things like pinch harmonics, natural harmonics, anything that is significantly quieter than the actual main tone and volume of your playing. The other cool things about this Cort, just to kind of wrap up this video, because in a lot of this video that we're talking about, it is about this Cort. It has a kill switch. If any of you guys like kill switches, all it is it's like an arcade button from back in the day that whenever you press, whenever you press, it cuts the signal from the guitar to the amp, turning it off. So you can do you can go like beep, 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 beep. You could learn Morse code. You can use it to do Eddie Van Halen shit. It's cool. There's websites. If you want, I can link the website to where this one's from. They have different colors. They have different shapes. It's a pretty fucking cool website, and they're like $30. The only other thing that really makes this guitar stand out, in my opinion, and I think everybody in almost every guitar should have it, is locking tuners. The first passing bar of a guitar being allowed in a studio is how well it stays in tune. And locking tuners will get you a decent chunk of the way. That is my Cort guitar that literally singles of you have been interested in. I'm excited to make more content for you guys. If you have any other ideas or any other concepts that you want to talk about as far as signal paths or mixing or playing or anything like that, please ask in the comments. Please like and subscribe. I'm working really hard this year on just making some good fucking content. Making some fun content that I want to make, that you guys want to hear. As much fun as doing covers and stuff is, I feel like that's only scratching the surface for what I want to do this year. So I want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for your questions and comments. And I'll see you again in the next one. Jake Quellen out.